Welcome to the FML Podcast, the podcast on a mission to uncover actionable insights, explore the latest trends, and to catalyze your fintech's growth. Join Growth Gorilla's founder and managing director, Sachdev, and some of fintech's hardest-hitting marketers and leaders.
Welcome, everyone. In this episode of the FML Podcast, we're joined by Mary Agbesanwa, Fintech Growth Lead at Seccl. Mary, welcome to the show. Before we dive in, could you tell us a bit about your career to date and how you ended up in your current role?
Sure. Thank you so much, Shamir. Great to be on the podcast and to see, well, not really see everyone, but to chat with you today. Happy to speak about my career today and my journey and aspirations in the fintech/wealth tech space generally. I would say I'm super passionate about technology and how it's democratizing access to financial services. And secondly, really passionate about helping millennials achieve their full potential. My background from a career space-wise is I spent 5 years working in consulting at PwC in kind of strategy and operations consulting, working with banks and fintechs, thinking about their business models and all that good stuff. So that was really exciting. And in my kind of last few years at PwC, I ran our Fintech Accelerator program, which kind of made me fall in love with fintech, got to meet those amazing founders, fall in love with the startup scale-up space, and knew I was ready to make the leap myself. And that's why I joined Seccl. And I really feel like wealth tech is going to be the next boom post kind of neobanks and retail banking, really thinking about how can we enable more people to get more out of their savings and start investing and really showcase to people what investment products are out there for their risk appetite and what that can do to transform their lives. So it's been really great so far, and I'm really excited to kind of really be championing driving more wealth tech for young people and just people generally in the UK. And yeah, outside of work, I'm kind of passionate about community, careers, talking about all things millennial and stuff like that as well.
Cool, thanks for that. In the bio that the team's put together for me, there's a section on accolades, and I just want to read it off because I don't think there's any way to summarize it. It says that you're MCA Young Consultant of the Year finalist 2021, Innovate Finance Women in Fintech Powerlist 2020, McKinsey Next Generation Women in Leader 2020, and number one on the Empower and Yahoo Finance Future Leader 2020. The question I have to ask is, how do you do it all?
It was nice and cringy listening to you read that, so thank you. One thing that I can do is work hard. That is probably my USP. So if I'm passionate about something and excited about it, I'll definitely give it my all. And it's nice to be recognized for that as well. And hopefully inspire other people looking to get into the space, whether it's fintech or tech generally as well.
It's a very, very, very lengthy bio there. All good stuff, I might add. You mentioned that you were at PwC. Obviously, you absolutely smashed it there through your work, driving fintech partnerships and running the fintech program that you mentioned. For anyone following you, it was really impressive to see what you did, obviously not only for your personal career development, but for your clients too. Can you kind of tell us what sort of empowered you to make your move to Seccl?
I was really interested, having spent 5 years in consulting, learning how businesses scale, adapt to challenges, the pandemic or kind of supply chain challenges, all sorts of things. I was really seeing such a boom and transformation happening, particularly in the UK and the US, with technology and what that meant for financial services. And I could see even the big companies think about fintech and what does it mean to deliver better customer experience and user experience for their clients. I was lucky enough to do some work whilst I was at PwC with Starling Bank, who are one of our clients. And it was just a really great experience to see the inner workings of a fintech, to support them with their SME banking proposition. And that was really exciting. And there I kind of caught the fintech bug, started networking in the space. And that was great to really just see what it takes and really see how someone's tweet for fintech can change how a product is built. And I really particularly love the kind of cross-functional working in a bank. A traditional bank, you might have tens of thousands of people and engineering is so far removed from customer service. But in a smaller fintech, when everything is digital and they're really thinking about kind of that seamless squad way of working and that agile way of working, those kind of cross-functional conversations were happening so regularly that I really loved it and knew that I wanted to make the leap and thought wealth tech was the space to do that next.
Obviously now you're Fintech Growth Lead at Seccl. Why don't you tell us a bit more about your role at Seccl, a little bit more about Seccl itself as well in your plans there to help grow it?
I like to say that at Seccl, we're basically striped for investment. So when you're thinking about technology and being a provider that helps people launch easily scalable investment propositions, you should be speaking to us at Seccl. When you think about wealth management, you think of not only kind of the archaic infrastructure that the space has, but also advisors who are like 50 years old and trying to advise you on what to invest in. And right now we're at such an interesting time in wealth management and investing generally. We have 12-year-olds that are investing in crypto, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, but there's a lot of appetite, but isn't necessarily the digital infrastructure for people to invest, as well as the kind of crazy advice gap that exists in the UK, as well as recognizing the fact that money is such a big stress for people. So the kind of crunch on people's wallets is bigger than ever. And how can we support people? I think it's really exciting to work at Seccl, where we're basically a technology provider and custodian that enables people to launch investment products. And we've worked super hard to build really clever APIs that basically mean our clients have plug and play access to financial markets, and their end clients can invest in secondary markets, which is super exciting. My role, as you mentioned, is Fintech Growth Lead. So I joined in November 2021. And yeah, I'm basically kind of turbocharging our work with fintech clients. So speaking to fintech founders, maybe even sometimes retailers or anyone thinking about embedded investments, and talking to them about kind of what products do they want to launch, why do they want to launch, how are they going to help their customers have access to these financial instruments and why. And yeah, super exciting in a fast growing space.
Being fairly sort of new to the role, it's only been a couple of months. What's kind of been your jumping off point to sort of kickstart that growth? I could also ask, is there a growth strategy already in place prior to your arrival, or are you building that now?
I guess we've been super fortunate at Seccl that we had a lot of inbound requests initially. We've got amazing fintech partners like Penfold, Chip, Multiply that some people might have heard of, Wombat. But yeah, we've had loads of amazing fintechs thinking about launching investment propositions that were organically reaching out to us. But now we're really thinking about what is our proactive kind of sales and growth strategy. So that's what I've come in to lead. And it's been super exciting to really start kind of from a blank piece of paper about what the approach is going to be next, thinking about our technology and what we provide and how can we basically just create the home of UK wealth tech and really design a process that enables people to get started quickly, scalably, but also safely, because we're dealing with client money and people's investments as well. So that's been really fun. And then also thinking about what's next, like what else do we want to offer to our customers, our clients, what kind of assets are people looking into as well. So it's been fun to work on. And yeah, definitely think about the processes that we need to get set up as well.
In that sort of, setting up for all of the processes, what have been your sort of key considerations for this role and your role as growth lead?
I would say my key considerations are really thinking about, firstly, data and what data do we have available around. So we've recently started using a CRM system to make sure that we are clear about the customers that we're liaising with. What marketing tactics do we need to deploy to make sure that we're getting our message out to the right people? And then now in this kind of quasi hybrid world, what events should we be attending, whether virtually or in person, and what events should we be hosting ourselves? So really thinking about that full kind of onboarding and experience, especially when you're in B2B Fintech sales. This isn't a decision that people make overnight. It isn't a decision people make in a month even. So really, how do you guide your customer? How are you at the point where they're even thinking maybe, just maybe, embedded investments is something that we should think about, or maybe we want to start that stocks and shares ISA to help people save money. So we really want to be in front of our customers as early as possible, and just kind of thinking about it from that angle has been really helpful.
With B2B, it's a slow sort of sales cycle. What's your approach to acquisitioning new customers? You mentioned obviously events, you mentioned lots of things there. What's the sort of overarching approach that sort of you're personally taking and Seccl's taking?
Trying to be more tailored and proactive. I guess, as I mentioned, we had like really good inbound people emailing us because we were working with those leading fintechs and because we had good relationships with them. The fintech community is small and good news spreads, but really trying to think about a proactive strategy. And also, I think when you're working with fintechs and you're a B2B provider, the reality is 7 out of 10, if not sometimes more, of those fintechs are going to fail. So how do you future-proof your own business in terms of the pricing and the risk that you take on, whilst also Not disrupting innovation happening in the space. So I think I had similar challenges and thoughts when I was at PwC as well. How do you enable innovation, enable the right people to be in the right room and to encourage the conversations around partnership, but also not do that to your own detriment as well, where you're kind of spending ages speaking to fintechs that won't ever have more than 100 customers. Really thinking about what does profitability look like for you, having the data to have those conversations, being okay to say no or we're not the right provider is something that we do all the time. Our customers really appreciate that. And usually a no today could be a conversation in 6 months or 12 months or 18 months time. So it's never a no forever. And that's kind of the spirit that we try and follow as well.
That's a really good point. We're B2B as well, naturally. And you're right, saying no, it's a really, really hard thing to do. But by saying no, obviously allows you to concentrate on the opportunities that are highly relevant, have high intent. Do you have any other advice to sort of other B2B fintechs out there that are sort of in that phase that you're really looking to scale up in terms of, customer acquisition or otherwise?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what we're saying around saying no, being clear around what your USP is as well. A journey that I've been on already, moving from corporate to scale up, is definitely the element of trial and error, to be honest, that you have to try different things out. Not everything is as clear and as structured and as process driven as I was used to. So there is definitely an element of trying different things out, seeing what works. Maybe you want to have more webinars, maybe you want to have more in-person events, maybe you want to work on your brochures and guides and things like that as well. So I think there's that element of kind of taking a multi-pronged approach to solving customer acquisition and getting your name out there as well. But I definitely think just kind of positioning yourself as a collaborative partner. I think most fintechs now would definitely say like they're always doing partnerships in some way, working with third-party providers, suggesting what you could even call competitors or things like that. Customers appreciate that. I feel like a lot of the calls that I end up having are not necessarily advisory, but almost like a mixture between advisory, therapy, just an ear to listen to, just a whole load of different things for clients to chat about. Because starting a business is not easy and we try and make it as simple as possible.
Yeah. I resonate with the therapy bit. Both ways, mind you, both ways. So you mentioned obviously that fintechs are frustrated with sort of process barriers. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on how fintechs can accelerate that digital transformation in order to scale through utilising partnerships.
Partnerships is a commonly discussed topic, but I guess it feels like sometimes we never get into the nitty-gritty of what does a good partnership look like. Things that come to mind for me, I think definitely just trust. I think from both sides, trust that both parties are committed, that they want to work together to get something done with the kind of end clients usually in mind. And I think that trust manifests itself in terms of just answering emails, promptly replying, being open and honest about who the key stakeholders are, what decisions you're yet to make. I think all of those things are good signs. And even at Seccl and other partnerships I've been involved in as well, it's really just checking, are your values aligned with the client as well? Do you have similar visions? Do you get on? Because all of those things, kind of amber flags at the start can become red flags very soon. So I think those things are useful as well. And just generally trying to create an environment where if there are any teething issues, because things aren't perfect in tech or especially if you're dealing with the client money and people can't access things, there can be all sorts of, it is frustrating. So having the environment where they know they can communicate with you, that you have SLAs in place, that there's that trust again between all of you, I think is really good. And I think one thing I will also say is that commonly at Seccl, we're always challenging our clients in terms of when they're thinking about building their user experience or what asset universe they want to offer to their clients. It really does take some thinking. It's so easy to say we want our customers to be able to invest in every single product and every single fund, but actually, is that best for them? Is sometimes more too confusing. You don't want to go to a supermarket that just has everything and you don't know what is the best thing. So actually, if you're thinking with long-term wealth management in mind, kind of a smaller asset universe, saying, okay, these are the funds that we recommend. This is maybe more high risk, this is low risk. I guess there's not necessarily giving advice, but actually just helping your client make a decision, because if they're looking for a slicker, more digital experience, they don't want to spend hours trying to decide what to invest in. So that idea of guiding your clients and really thinking not just in the what sounds kind of buzzword and fun to offer clients like 0% commission and access to everything you want, but actually what has their best interest in mind as well.
A big part of what fintechs are doing at the moment, a lot of it's very sort of community based and community focused. You've got like Bank Greenwood in the US, you've got Wealth8 in the UK over here, and there's lots of neobanks like Algebra Bank that are being more focused on, say, ethical banking and that sort of stuff. What's your view on fintechs and communities? And I suppose from that, how do you think fintechs will help support financial inclusion?
I think that's a brilliant question and something I'm super passionate about. There's so much potential in the financial inclusion space. It kind of becomes a bit of a buzzword because everyone says, oh, yeah, we're trying to drive financial inclusion and help people. And in reality, when you think about neobanking or the neobanks and challenger banks and financial inclusion, did they really help drive financial inclusion, or did they just help us do our banking on our phones in a slicker way? Actually, how many people just use a digital bank for their banking? Usually it's just like one of 3 bank accounts that someone might have, and they still have a bank with a traditional bank. But what I think is exciting about wealth tech is there's so much potential to really drive what I think is true financial inclusion and inclusivity by designing wealth tech that not only gives people access to new financial instruments and service and advice, but also really tailored to that community. So whether we're talking about like Islamic finance and people being able to invest in particular products based on their religion, or as you mentioned, like Wealth8, which are focused on encouraging more Black and multi-ethnic people into investing. I definitely think kind of personalization and community will be a trend in wealth tech, not because people just want to do things with their friends. It's also the idea that if you can really understand that community and understand what maybe their nerves, pain points are in relation to financial services or fintech currently, you can really design features that are really pertainable to them and to what matters. So whether it's Gen Z and the fact that they're really passionate about ESG and the environment, so they want to see their carbon tracking on their investments or which of their funds they're invested in are ESG compliant, or whether it's the Black community and they want to see how much of their investment is supporting Black-owned businesses, whatever it is, I think that there's so much potential to offer that kind of advice and service. And obviously that creates really great products from a user perspective that end up being really sticky and having loyal customers as well. And then also thinking about the financial education piece. So once you've got kind of customers that are in a nice way hooked, what could you teach them about their finances beyond that?
Gen Z being passionate about ESG. I think we've seen that fintechs become really, really sticky with Gen Z and with millennials. Do you think that's because fintech is allowing or facilitating community-based products? Or do you think it's because it's just allowing you to do banking on their phones? Or do you think it's a bit of both?
I think it's a variety of factors that are driving the engagement of millennials and Gen Z in fintech and investing. At one level, it's hard out here, is the economy that it drives people to look to alternative places to put their money, especially when they might have not only a bit more disposable income, but a bit more disposable time with the pandemic. And now, like, I guess the kind of fintech or finfluencers on TikTok and things like that, people are interested and want to dabble. And also the democratization that kind of the neobanks and robo-advisors have done for people to have access to secondary markets and financial markets generally, I think is super exciting. I'm really passionate about just like the plain vanilla things like language. If you look at the way Starling or Monzo speaks to their customer base versus an HSBC, is literally chalk and cheese. So much more kind of down to earth, so much more transparent. They get their community involved. They're active on Twitter. They reply to memes. They create their own memes. They run weird competitions where they give people free money. They are really engaging people, and they're really driving kind of social fintech, which again, I think is definitely something more we can see, the gamification of fintech, making it fun, enabling people not to be scared of their bank accounts or their investments and actually saying, you know what, I don't know enough now, but this app is going to help me learn. And I think that's super exciting for the financial inclusion point we mentioned earlier as well.
And you mentioned gamification. Is that a trend that you see sort of emerging over the next year or two? Or do you think there'll be other trends emerging as well?
I definitely think that's one trend, less so that I've seen in wealth tech per se. I guess, given our long-term horizons. But I definitely think in fintech generally, I think that whether it's kind of savings pots or kind of point systems or being able to export different things from your accounts that you want to share with friends or family, just the idea of removing, I guess, the element of fear and hostility with numbers and banks. And I think like Clio is a fintech that's done that quite well. They're kind of quite comedic in the way that they think about finance and engaging with their customers. So I think that will be something good. And for me, that's about basically like behavioral economics to get people to build good financial habits. And for some people, it's easy to be quite disciplined and say, I'm not going to spend more than 60% of my income, but for others it isn't. And they've got other things they need to think about, or it's tempting when they have so many, I don't know, food delivery apps on their phone, that kind of thing. So, I'm excited to see what that could do to help people building good financial habits.
I was going to say 60% of income, saving that. I wish. Paying me too much to Seccl, that's what it is.
I wish.
Moving away slightly, I suppose, from fintech, but kind of going back to sort of your interest in areas that you're sort of passionate with. You run a female community that connects future female leaders to opportunities, resources. I believe it's called Now You're Talking. I suppose, what was your sort of inspiration and how did you come about sort of building that community?
The Now You're Talking network really just started because I was a young professional working in corporate and really felt like there wasn't a space for women to connect in a company agnostic way, so from any company, and just work out what it's like to navigate kind of their early to mid career stages. And so it started off as a WhatsApp group with 50 of my friends that I knew worked in and around London. And I was like, guys, we're just going to share ideas and thoughts and articles and things like that. And at first everyone was like, is this spam? This is a bit weird. But actually it just took off and people really got value from it. They started sharing job opportunities, resources, people started reviewing each other's CVs, and then it started growing and growing, and then we started opening more groups, and eventually people said, we need to meet, we need to have events. And I was like, oh, great. Everyone's looking to me to do this. So then we started running events and putting on workshops. And I've always been fascinated in reading kind of career resources, training to be a career coach. So that was really great. And so now we do networking events. We run career-related workshops on things like personal branding, getting a workplace sponsor, salary negotiation, any of those kind of career-related stigmatized topics that we think young women should be talking about. And we really just like to start the conversation and build a community. Again, I think is really, really important.
Do you think that the industry has changed in the last 5 years? Hopefully positively. I'm hoping that you'll say that.
Yeah, I definitely think it has changed. I think there is more acceptance of women in tech, and it's more of a, like if I go on my LinkedIn now compared to like even 2 years ago, there's more conversations about women in tech, women in fintech. And that is really exciting to see. The next leap I would love to see is really just helping people understand the breadth of what we mean by tech-related careers or fintech-related careers. I think we have so many women who come to the Now You're Talking network or attend our events and want to get into tech or tech-adjacent roles, and they think that actually they need to go and do a coding course and they need to become a developer. But as we know, like there's so many roles that are not necessarily tech-related roles within tech environments. So whether you're product manager or you work in marketing or you work in growth or sales or business development or in recruitment, and demystifying and showcasing how people can be in those kind of non-tech roles or tech-adjacent roles, whatever you want to call it, I think is super exciting. And we're definitely thinking about how we can enable more people to get into this space. There's so many jobs being created, but we want to make sure that women know that they have the right skills and the right capabilities to apply for them.
Do you know why we were sort of saying all that? I was just thinking about my other half, and my missus used to work for a traditional bank, and I'm trying to encourage her to focus on more the fintech area. And she's not a tech or a dev by any stretch, but definitely in a tech adjacent role. Just got me thinking. What sort of advice would you give to women entering or trying to get into the tech field?
The first step is really just finding a community, whether it's the Now You're Talking network or communities related to your discipline. I think that really helps to have that peer accountability, people to ask questions. Don't try and solve everything yourself. Like someone else has gone from teaching to consulting or consulting to fintech. I think the more you realize that your network is your net worth, as they say, I think that is one of the biggest lessons learned of working so far for myself. Investing in your network before you need it is so powerful. So thinking about having a diverse network, not only in your organization, but outside of it, in careers that you might want to join, in careers that you might never join, but actually taking the time to go to networking events, connect with like-minded people, explore ideas, because the world is moving at such a fast pace. Like I can speak even for myself. I'm currently reading a lot about kind of Web3 and crypto and NFTs, just because it's such a new space. And I just want to learn as much as possible, and not being afraid to feel like a learner again, I think is something we can all embrace.
Have you tried to buy an NFT just yet? Have you?
I haven't. I'm a bit skeptical, but as long as people are willing to lose the money or they're not putting their whole life savings into some of this stuff, I don't see any major harm. But I think it's exciting to see fintech terms and technical terms become commonplace. Like I never would have thought when I heard about NFTs like a few years ago that now is a word that a lot of people are accustomed to. So I think the rate at which learning and change is happening is just like sometimes crazy. Like I have to remind myself, am I in real life? Am I in the metaverse? I can't remember.
The other day, like my wife, she made her first investment into Bitcoin and in Ethereum. And that's when I kind of knew that this is going mainstream now. I was like, right, okay, we're entering that, that bell curve that's always there, the mass adoption phase. It's like, we're definitely entering that. But anyway, I digress. Well, look, we're coming up to the close. We'll jump into our sort of quick fire round, which is a little less fintech or tech focused and a little bit more fun. What song do you have on repeat right now?
I'm still rinsing Adele's 30 albums, so it'd probably be Easy on Me from her album I think it's great.
And which fintech app do you use the most?
Dip and dab in Coinbase every now and then, so I'll probably say Coinbase came to mind first.
Fair enough. What TV show are you binging right now?
This is embarrassing because I don't watch that much TV, but I have started watching The Apprentice again, although it's definitely more comedy than business advice, but it is still funny.
I've jumped into Dragon's Den again after Stephen Bartlett's jumped on it.
Is it good?
It is pretty good, yeah. It is good. He's one of those people that, like, you just know he's going to be a nice guy in real life.
Exactly.
Like, just from his whole demeanour. But yeah, again, it's nice to see a bit of diversity there as well, I think.
Agreed.
And what's the best bit of life advice you've ever received?
I would just say, what would you do if you weren't afraid? I can't remember who said that. I think it might have been Sheryl Sandberg, maybe. But yeah, I just think I try and ask myself that question every day, whether it's like too afraid to cold email someone or too afraid to approach someone on LinkedIn or too afraid to speak to someone at a networking event. I think there's so many amazing things that can happen through partnerships and collaboration and just taking a leap of faith and speaking to someone.
And if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Buy Bitcoin.
Smashed it. I love it. Last couple. Who in the world of fintech would you most like to take to lunch?
I guess the first person that came to mind, although I've met her and worked with her, Anne Boden. I think she's obviously doing great things with Starling. And yeah, she has a great mind and way of looking at things and really thinking about profitability. So I'd definitely love to have lunch with her. That
would definitely be an interesting conversation. We could talk about Starling Bank and their progress for a whole other hour.
Exactly.
And then lastly, and this is one of my favourite questions, it's also my interview question as well. What's one thing I haven't asked that you think I should have asked?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, maybe like, what is the best book you've read recently or something? I like reading a lot, so I'm always up for a book question.
What's the most recent book that you read then?
So I just finished reading Will Smith's new book called Will. That he co-wrote with Mark Manson. Highly recommend. He's really vulnerable in it and talks about his whole career journey and how to succeed and become one of the world's greatest actors and how that might have implications for your family and your relationships and everything like that. But it's just so funny. Like, definitely get the Audible book because he raps in it, he sings in it. It's got great instrumental. Okay. It had me laughing over Christmas and New Year's, like, to myself. It was quite funny.
Sort of semi on topic with Will Smith, but they're actually remaking The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I've seen the trailer. I feel like it's that whole thing of like, why do we have to remake everything? Do we not have any more ideas? But I'm here for it. I'm here for Gen Z to experience this as well, and maybe a new fashion.
I had the same sort of feeling. I was like, oh, I don't know about it. And I watched the trailer and I thought, you know what, it looks pretty good actually. It looks quite intense. It's a bit
more dramatized.
Yeah, it was a bit like Empire, and it felt a little bit more gritty. I thought, okay, this could be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on today, sharing with us your experiences and answering all of my questions. If they want to get in touch with you, Mary, how should they all reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Millennial Mary A, or LinkedIn. I try and post there quite often as well. And yeah, definitely check out Seccl and everything we're doing to power investments.
I'll pop into the show notes and the link for Now You're Talking, your Twitter handle, and the website link to Seccl as well.
Amazing. Thank you.
The FML Podcast is brought to you by Growth Gorilla. To find out how our marketing growth experts can boost your fintech's growth, head to growthgorilla.co.uk. And make sure to search for the FML Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Don't forget to click follow to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Growth Gorilla, thanks for listening.